Hello and welcome to Talk.dance. I've got with me my co-host, Kelly Palmater,
All
and
right.
today, a special guest, Nikolai Shpakov.
Hey guys.
So, Nikolai, we're so excited to have you here. We've been talking about the fact that you're going to be coming on in this episode, and we want to talk to you about, of course, the film that you starred in, the documentary film, Hot to Trot. And by the way, before I forget, I want to let people know that the website for that film is hottotrotfilm.com. But before we get too far into the interview, Nikolai, what's the best way people can reach out to you or contact you? What's your website?
So my studio is ExclusivelyDanceStudios, and email would be exclusivelydance@aol.com. And well, I guess I'm on Facebook as well under my name, and that would probably be easiest because it seems like everybody have a Facebook these days. So
Yeah. It's the way everyone's keeping in contact anymore. Yeah.
So we'll definitely put a link to how to contact Nikolai if you're interested in doing that in the show notes, and links to the film and where you can find that.
right.
So Nikolai, when did the film come out?
I believe it came out about 2 years ago, and she started filming it, I think, starting 2012, and I came into the picture around 2013, end of 2014, and I think she was completed by 15 or so, 15, 16.
Wow. So
Yeah.
she was working at it for a long time.
Yeah, I think it took her about 5 years almost to, film it and then, do all the background work and, all the editing. And because she also ran into a problem, I mean, obviously finances, because it's a dance film. So obviously a lot of music. So
Yeah.
footage, she realized that she has to get all these copyrights, and so that was a little bit of a delay for her to get it out. But luckily in this world, we have a lot of people who, willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
So she was able to, I mean, we did some fundraiser things and stuff. She did, and, I participated in some, and she, she pulled it off for sure.
And the she we're referring to is Gail Friedman, I assume, right? The
She is a Gail Friedman, yes.
director and producer of the film.
And she's a filmmaker, and she had some other, I think one of her previous remarkable things was something about memorial, the 9/11 memorial. I think
Okay.
that was her project before. So she's done some significant work for sure, including this one.
Right. So the documentary film is all about kind of the world of same-sex dance competition, and it features 2 or 3 couples more prominently throughout the film. And Nikolai, you kind of become quite a central figure in the film. But as you kind of alluded to, coming into partway through the process, there was a little bit of a real challenge with one of the dancers, right? Unexpected medical situation.
Right.
And I think it's Robbie Tristan.
Yeah, Robbie, yeah.
And his partner turns to you to ask if you'd consider competing with him. And I believe in the film you said, I don't do that, right? I've never danced same sex before. I'm gay, but I don't do same sex competition. And then I guess he goes on to convince you that, well, maybe you should give it a try. And so it's quite an interesting twist to the film. There's a little bit of course, drama, and it turns out that in the end, Robbie is okay with Great to Hear, because I think everyone gets kind of concerned. Can you tell us about what that was like when Ernesto was the partner who approached you and asked you to dance with him? Because as you said, you'd never done that before.
Yeah, well, it is it's like if you don't know something, you're usually scared for most of people. That's how it is. And even though, obviously I dance and I know how to dance, I guess, the idea of changing the format of it was like definitely out there for me. And it was a quiet involvement. And I actually kind of like, once I stepped into it, I really discovered a lot. And I'm glad I did, because it opened up so many different things in terms of dance, in terms of just my professional growth as a teacher. It's you kind of like, you try different shoes, so to speak, if you will. So it's definitely was a great experience for me. But having said that, I always like use this example where, even like, let's say, being gay and everything is like, I guess when it comes to work or your profession or what do you do, I mean, I guess we all have like, we brought up in a certain way, and like you bring something new, it's definitely like a challenge, if you will, to like accept it. And I think that in the beginning, initially, yes, I was, but then I discovered it and it was good and it was great. And I think it gave me a lot of feedback for just even just being as a teacher as well. And it's saying this, like I'm saying this example because this has nothing to do with dance, but like how mentality works. And just for you to sort of, I guess, understand, like, let's say, yeah, I'm gay, whatever this, like when John and I, my husband, he's in the movie too, we met at first, and he was telling me about, this his friends, this couple, gay couple, having kids, and he was like, we have to visit them, they live in Rhode Island, we should go. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. And so finally we just took a road trip and went to visit them. Anyway, but the so I remember, and then we went, it was like a 4-hour trip and great weekend and meeting them and everything. But then on the way back, all of a sudden, like I realized my thought process on the way was this. And keep in mind, I'm gay, and John and I were talking, having kids. For me, like I realized in my mind on the way there, I was like, what kind of freak show I'm gonna see?
Right, because it's you're brought up a certain way, you're used to a certain thing.
And like having gay people have kids and whatever, it was like alternative family, if you will, because we're talking about alternative dance, alternative family, I guess. And on the way back, I kind of realized that, speaking going forward into our conversation in terms of that dance, like the same sex, is accepted now in the mainstream, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like until I saw it, until I sort of tried it, so to speak, or like just being introduced to it and kind of saw it with my own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea was like crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So saying that, like the reason I'm saying this is because with this new rule within DCA, like now it's allowed. I think it's a lot of like with a lot of things these days in terms of regulation or understanding of how to deal with this and like how implement it into the system. You're talking about gender, this, that, like, gay marriage, all of those things that like they obviously complicate the situation. I think it's for good, but I think initially people have a very kind of either negative or very, they very don't want to deal with this, or they just very skeptical
Yeah.
about the whole situation. So, I mean, anything new you implement, it obviously takes barriers to cross.
Yes, it takes some time to get that going.
Besides just the, like, let's say with the in DCA implementing this rule, but now even like talking to some of my friends, colleagues and stuff, where they, some people say, oh, that's great, and some people like, well, what do you judge? Is this a man? Is this a woman? Is this a lead? Is this a follow? What like, and same-sex dancing for me personally was almost like I realized that you don't have to stay with the traditional steps in terms of like how the syllabus is, if you will. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have all different precedes and follows, if we would talk like a.
And that had to be quite a change for you coming from the Latin world, where like Latin, international, it's very, these are the steps, there's no new steps, these are the things that you come across. And then now here's this whole new world to where it's the sky's the limit. You can do so many different new innovative things. How was that transition from one world to the next?
it was interesting because I mean I think naturally I like to learn. I'm open to things. It was really, and it was like it took time for me to sort of understand, like, or not understand, but sort of like start to understand the idea that my alemana lead or alemana follow actually can go into something else, so I can change the part, like exchange with the partner and stuff. And that's what Ernest and I would do. We kind of like from the beginning we decided we're not just gonna like one of us gonna follow and one of us gonna lead. We decided that we're gonna exchange,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think it's much more complicated, I think, because I mean, it is for, it's like, how do you change? How do you change the hands? How do you change the frame? What's the signal? All of those logistics were like, as we were doing it, I think, we did it okay at the time, but I mean, even now, like I'm still working on things and I can see how things can be better. And also like, let's say if you develop like let's say something more like a syllabus like,
Mm-hmm.
and like which I kind of did a little bit, like I actually have some things on the back what I've been working in, and it's really interesting the logistics of like how things are and how to make it easy and approachable, and not just because when you experience dancer you can do anything. Dancing is dancing. But
Right.
if let's say if you do something where you're trying to sort of like put something like where like anybody can learn, that's that takes more than just like knowing how to dance. You really have to sort of understand and really understand how you can teach it and how that can be very approachable, because
Mm.
I think that's the key.
It sounds like that's your thought process throughout life or throughout dance, right? Like figuring out a way to not only be able to do it yourself, but make it easier for others to assimilate it and understand it. Uh, was that your thought process throughout life, or did you learn that getting into the same sex dancing world?
No, I think it's like, I think maybe just the same sex dancing. This is just one of the things. Yeah, but I mean, I can't like really sit here and analyze and thinking like, oh, that's how I think. But I definitely know that, let's say, as a dancer, I had a certain amount of talent as a kid, like as growing up, but dancing was one of those things. Like I wasn't a good learner. I probably you would describe me now with nowadays terms, like I probably had some sort of learning disability, because like I kind of like, I think I was very hyper in this and that, so I wasn't those kids like who learn things very quickly unless it was natural,
Right.
like. So I think like when I started teaching, when I came to this country over 20 years ago and I started working with Fred Astaire, I remember that even though like I was not experienced as a teacher, I kind of, in my mind, natural, I guess, I had that I need to, like, if I want to if I'm teaching somebody, I have to make sure they understand what I'm saying, like, or they have to get it, you know.
Yes.
I think that was just sort of natural for me, if you like you saying it. And I think from there I started developing more and more how to, teach it to a monkey, basically, like kind of thing.
Yep.
Because that's, I mean, I know it's kind of sounds harsh, but like with dancing and like with everything else, like, especially now where things have to be instant, and you just, if you don't look at them like for 5 seconds and you don't understand, you're not looking again, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, everything is so quick now. It's like you've got to be able to immediately identify and learn, for
So
sure.
obviously, and the same sex dancing, as far as like logistics of it, it's definitely can be developed in a great way. I mean, it has to be smart and clever, but I definitely think that it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Hmm.
The question is who's going to do it, or like if people have patience to sort of go through it. And I think they will, because like, I mean, I did some work myself. I kind of stopped it because other things, but I still keep that in mind. And I know that some people in the industry also like working on creating something, because essentially, like, see, with the same-sex dancing, it's like you basically, it's just basically two guys or two girls, or boy and a girl dancing opposite parts. you know
Right.
that's sort of easy, because you kind of like, just if man's dancing female part, so you have a syllabus, you have a already curriculum you can follow. If you want to do something more, that's I think that's an eventually I think will come out.
Hmm.
So Nikolai, you kind of alluded to this rule change, and so for our listeners, the National Dance Council of America just earlier this year, just a couple months ago, made a rule change, finally moving into the 21st century, to allow same-sex couples to dance and in the mainstream competition. So prior to that, and during the filming of this documentary, really same-sex competition was only possible in very dedicated competitions, right? And so it wasn't available in the mainstream competitions. And now that that has changed, and we talked about this briefly in an earlier episode, actually, Nikolai, we're not certain. It might be that Kelly actually did the very first same-sex competition at an NDCA
Yeah,
competition.
yeah. A friend of mine did, and we were at dinner and decided randomly at dinner to jump in the showcase division. So we ran back to the hotel and put something together really quickly just to get out there on the floor and in solidarity.
Right.
So yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting,
How were you received?
They loved it. Everyone was very, very welcoming and very, very respectful and very excited about it.
Right,
I don't remember anyone being opposed to it. So
right, right, right.
Yeah.
it's interesting though, and what are your thought process, because you've grown up dancing, you have such a dancing background, and you were leading women the whole time, and
Right.
it's a different dynamic leading a man versus a woman, gay, straight, doesn't matter, but the physicality of it. Did you find that was a big adjustment for yourself? I mean, I know we're talking about the rules, but I'm really interested to pick your brain about that aspect of it.
Yeah, well, because if you dance with a man, it is a definitely different weight. And that's what I discovered when we danced with Ernesto, because both of us, like, I mean, Ernesto's obviously much smaller than I am, but he's still a guy, and he still has a weight, and the it's a man's body anyway. And so it's definitely, you cannot fling them around like a girl. Like, if the girl is like, you basically somehow, they just more adaptable to delete and being more sort of giving, where the guys are, I think we tend to muscle each other much more. So in that way, it also was a discovery, because you can't dance the same way, because
Mm.
just the format of it is different, like the size, I guess.
Yeah.
um, so this is definitely that's another factor. I mean, it's a lot of factors into it. And I mean, at this point, like, I was actually telling my ex-partner, my female partner, like, said, like, why don't we like try to do something where I follow and you lead, because she's probably better leader than I am. The and that it definitely, like, let's say if I'm taller and bigger than her and I'm following her, obviously it has to be done some adjustments, because I think adjustment really, like, let's say if you take the syllabus, like, let's say a fan alemana, like, the basic underarm turns and all of this, that would be probably, that should be still stay like a structure. But then when you go into the open or open work, that's definitely gives you a lot of opportunity what you can do, and especially you
Yeah.
customize it to to people, to who's dancing it. But same thing is with the regular, I guess, with the regular choreography, like with the regular, for the regular man woman couple.
Right.
Definitely the fact that you dancing with somebody basically your own size, it's definitely has to, it can become very physical, I think. So, and that's where Ernesta and I were sometimes, we were like, and also, like, it's funny though, I have to say that, like most of teachers, even straight guys, like, I mean, when they like to do girls part. I mean, or like at least they think they know like the girls part.
Mm-hmm.
And because every teacher I see, they teach and they, let's say, okay, let me show you how, this is the girl step, and I think it's almost like what I realized for me was it was a false fact that I knew how to do the girls part, because one thing is like when you take a one single step and demonstrate it, or the other thing is like when you do 5 dances and you have to come up with, like, you have to deliver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
One dance, because it's like, it's definitely different, and I can see where the girls are like, you know what, you guys are suck. I kind of, this was a new appreciation for sure, in terms of like, like as a lead, for instance, you lead something and you think you're helping and that's how it should be. And then you do the same step and somebody leading you the same way you do. And you're like, why are you pushing me? Like, I really don't need this right here. Like, all I need you to do just to be right there so I can do my thing. But, it's, it was definitely, it's a experience. And if you do it, I would recommend anybody just to do it, either like as a one dance or something, just to experience, because I think both parties can definitely understand better about what they need to do on the opposite side, and for themselves as a leader or follow, So, that was, but it comes with it, you have to try it. You can't, like, like as I said, the guys usually, like, they think they know the part, but then it's not. They don't.
There's a difference between knowing it and practically being able to do it.
Yeah,
Right?
one time I was mean to these 2 guys who were like just playing around and dancing with each other, and they came to me and they're like, "So what do you think? Was it good?" I was like, "No, it wasn't." I was like, I apologize. Like, I just said what was in my mind first, but like, they both kind of like, and well, they had a good time. They had they had a fun and stuff, but it shows me that you do something like this, you also have to like kind of not be delusional about not for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate what you're talking about though, with this difference in weight. Nikolai, as you know, I'm a pretty tall guy, I'm a pretty big guy, and so usually when I go out social dancing, most of my partners are significantly smaller and lighter than I am. There's one place where I sometimes go social dancing in Canada when I go visit family there, and there's a woman who's trans, and she's very large. She's a little bit larger than I am, very big boned, and I think it's actually quite a challenge for her, because a lot of guys, just because of the stature, right, don't want to dance with her, and I'll dance with her, but I find, wow, it's just, even still leading in the lead role, it feels so incredibly different, right? You sense the weight, right? And it's not a comment about the quality of dance at all, but it does feel so different.
And see, people are criticized for this, because I actually, as he's talking about, because I have my very good friends, Andre and Elena, Gavriline and Krichkova, who were like American champions and Blackpool and all of this. They were always criticized because he's super tall and she's super short.
Yeah.
Sorry. But they were incredible couple. I think, they my very good friends, but also, I remember when they were competing and stuff, like people are always were commenting on, like how different this and that, but they made it work. And because they were very knowledgeable and great professionals, they knew and they made it work for them. So I think talking about like same sex or not same sex, it's just generally like you can make it work. But again, it's like I don't want to sound brutal, but you can't be delusional about, like, you need to have a structure with this somehow. You need to have a knowledge. And knowledge, I think, generally for both same sex, not same sex, has to be the same, has to be some structured, and then from there you can develop anything you want basically. And I think same-sex dancing or same gender dancing or like lead and follow kind of situation is just a one more extra opportunity to create something different. And I think it adds obviously, it's in today's world, much more to it, I think, as well. So that's sort of my point. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, 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 not at all. So in the film, I know you go. There's a couple of competitions you participate in. I think one is the April Follies, and then later at the Gay Games.
Right.
You mentioned that you and Ernesto, when you were dancing, you would like to switch the lead and follow roles. Was that common in those competitions? Were many of the couples doing that, or was that more unusual? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's common, but not everybody do it. It was just the thing about what was really fun about what, and this is sort of like maybe one of the minuses of like now same sex becoming like a mainstream, because at the same sex competitions as they were, and if they probably will still they run them now, obviously, that it's basically no rule. So it's kind of like, people do whatever, like people can just do regular, like with one is follow, one leads, and where some people, they can exchange. So we just decided, and like you can wear dress, you can wear costume, like, so it's all of that, like, was really not regulated for sure. So now with the getting it into the mainstream, I think I already hear that you cannot exchange the lead. So it's like so they already like putting it where one follows, one leads. Like, so it's sort of like,
Oh, really? So that world is changing so that way you don't change.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about it, but I think it's like but I think that's what's happening, like where basically it's just two men or two women dancing and they doing the same thing, I believe. So
Okay.
I don't know how they're gonna go forward with the whole thing. I think it's a great idea to have it exchanged.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's definitely puts it in a different category. But then again, it's like if you put it in a competition, is that a different category? Is this allowed? It's like, I mean, that's also can change the mainstream. Like, let's say if you have a professional couple who's exchanging the lead, and then so it's like, does it mean that mainstream couples can do that too? Like, like, so it's sort
Yeah.
of like,
yeah,
I think all this
why
legit.
not, right? Yeah,
Why not? But at the same time, you also have a lot of, I don't know, like it's I mean, it's gonna become probably another type of business and a lot of type of like kind of thing somehow, some way or the other. But it's definitely they definitely right now it's out there, but how they're gonna deal with this and how successful it's gonna be. And also, like you said that you perform and you got like a very, Kelly, you got like a good response and everything, like everything new. So I think it's
Yeah.
also gonna like come to the point where this whole same-sex dancing has to sort of prove itself.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's
And keep in mind that still, even though people may be more receptive to it or it's allowed, like, where's it gonna go? So I think, and I'm kind of like putting a little negative spin on it right now, but
No, I don't think so. I think somebody who's been in it, you've been in the trenches, so to speak, right? You were there. You were firsthand knowledge of the world and its workings. You understand that now that it's going into a new forum, so to speak, is becoming more mainstream. Where else is it going to go? What's going to happen? So I don't think you're putting a negative spin on it. You're just someone who's seen a lot of stuff and is now looking at what the next step is going to be as well. So.
right. So it's definitely still they still have work to do for sure. And also, like, I mean, with the whole competition and everything, I think it's also like, what's the flavor of the month, if you will,
Mhm.
or what's the general sentiment. Because like if you take somebody who's like well-respected coach and they're gonna start pushing this agenda, I mean, it will work because a lot of people, they are
Yep.
following, what the coach says, if you will, or, so it's sort of like also like how that's going to play out. And maybe it's going to go up and down and stuff. But I mean, the main point is that it's in place, I guess.
Mhm.
They'll figure that out, how it's going to work and how it's going to integrate within, I guess, the general community.
Well, I think it's like anything new, right? So no matter what you start off new, there's always going to be that initial phase to where there's a lot of figuring out what's going to happen. So the final product is never, hardly ever what it starts out to be. So we'll see what kind of growing pains develop now that it's a little more mainstream.
Yeah, and also like since it's new, again, because people brought up in a certain mentality, people are don't, like it's gonna take a while for people to accept it fully.
Hmm.
Because I think everybody kind of on the surface, everybody accepts it. Like I mean, I remember somebody who very good friend of mine, very conservative friend of mine, like they saw the movie and I said, "So what do you think?" And their response was like, "I was not offended."
Oh man. Oh man,
And
dude.
Well, that might have been a step forward, in fact, right?
think
Yeah.
that it's actually quite a good response for them.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I was like, like not like I wasn't thrilled, but it was a good enough response for me. From
Yeah. There was a victory there. Yeah.
right. So definitely, it's same thing here. So, like, do people want to take it seriously? Do people want to take it as an extra thing? I think it's probably. I feel like maybe it's gonna be more like a showcase type stuff where maybe like good couples are gonna like play with it a little bit on that level for sure. I don't know if it's like all of a sudden like couples gonna split up and start doing same-sex dancing, but
Hmm.
we see that some people will explore the opportunity and make it as at least as a showcase or like as a show number or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I would do that if I had somebody to dance with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be very cool. Even socially, I'm wondering if we're going to see over time a little bit more of a change. So for me, most of my personal goals and what I get out for is all about social dancing, right? And every now and again, there might be another guy that I'll dance with, and it's just someone wants to have fun, and we do it, and it's kind of like, okay, that was kind of cool, right? We mix it up, but it's kind of unusual. I'm sure there are places where there's almost exclusively same-sex dancing happening at a social level, but in most of the mainstream venues, it's not that common. But it seems to me that over time, you just want to go and dance and enjoy the process of dancing, right? And it shouldn't really matter what the gender is, right? The gender doesn't really shouldn't really impact the physics of the dancing and the joy of just the lead and follow. So the few times that I've done that in a social scene, there's a little bit of a kind of a counter pressure because sometimes the women I think are a little bit disappointed that there are two guys like tying themselves up dancing with each other, and, and they kind of like, sometimes they're already lacking guys, right? And what's more common is to see girls dancing with each other because there's sometimes not enough guys at a ballroom social or something like that, right?
It's not just a dancing issue.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
I was told, not just dancing. What a waste.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, but I think the fact that it's it's definitely more acceptable. I think it's also in terms of like the and not business, but I guess the work, because I mean in this business for sure, like especially when it comes to pro am,
Hmm.
guys, male teachers are they have much more work because obviously a lot of more women want to dance,
Yeah.
for naturally, I guess, where actually now I think it's actually a good opportunity for female dancers, teachers, professionals actually to work more, because if this is available now, like, you don't need a guide, like, if anything, like, because
Right.
I remember a few times where, like, it was like instances at the competition where something happened, like the male teacher didn't fly in, and like female coach stepped in to dance on the dance floor competition, and they literally asked them out because they were like, it has to be.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like she put the number and everything because she was like, okay, the guy is not here because he's still on the plane.
Right.
He started dancing with the student at the competition, and they said, no, you cannot do that.
Wow.
So I think that's not the issue anymore. So it's so in that way, it's also it's a but I guess everything has a good and bad, or like plus and minus, if you will. Definitely good development, definitely more work ahead for sure. Like for me, as I said, like the whole movie experience was it was great. And as we were going on, as like during that, like it was a good journey for me because I learned so much over period of that time, to what it is and what it takes and this and that. And obviously after it's over, like my brain is still working, like, and
Yeah.
things much more with the open eyes, if you will. So
Nice.
that's where I am.
I love it, man. I love it.
So I really enjoyed the film, and I highly recommend it to anyone, whether you ever see yourself possibly dancing same sex or not is irrelevant. It's I felt I learned a lot, not just about the same sex dance world, but a little bit more about just the challenges of coming out and being gay. It's not something I have firsthand knowledge of, and I found it to be quite a touching film. So like Nikolai, I've known you kind of for a while, and it was just like, oh yeah, that guy Nikolai, I'd see you around certain venues, and you have a wonderful dance studio, and it was just, oh yeah, there's Nikolai. And I felt I got to know more about you, and just to an extent a little bit about the challenges of a gay man coming out, or some of the challenges for gay women that are featured in the film. So highly recommend it. By the way, we will put the link in the show notes, but it is available on iTunes. It's available on Amazon. So,
Yeah, which is
definitely check it out.
incredible. No, I mean, she definitely, I repeat myself, she did a great job with this movie. And I think dancing kind of tied up, but it basically was about people. It ended up to be about people. And, everybody have a story, really, like,
Yeah.
Right.
so it's like, I mean, but it's definitely something like the film is not just about dancing. It is about dancing, but also a lot of other things, which are, everybody have their story, and everybody have their struggles, and things happening along the way. And as you said, like, you looking at somebody and you just don't know anything about it.
It's very humanizing.
Yeah. So it's definitely, and I think she did a great job putting it together such a way where it's kind of like, I don't think you expect to see what you see once you see the movie.
Right. You start watching it expecting, just this thing about ballroom, and then you get into it and you realize it's so much more than that. It's so much, like you said, about life and about the struggles and choices, and it's really cool.
Even though, I mean, the movie, I don't think the movie has the sad, it's not, it's a happy movie.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, but somehow that she made it very subtle, like this whole human stories and stuff. That's definitely, very, very well done in that way, for sure.
Right. The challenges of partnering that I guess any like professional partnership can have. There's some of that. There's the challenges of just dealing with, well, the film spans a period of time, which is kind of interesting, right? As you said. So in the beginning of the film, There's Robbie and Ernesto. Robbie has to leave the country for medical attention. There's a connection with you. There's a story about dealing with the relationships with parents, right? And what's that like? And that's very touching. And both Ernesto and you meeting your spouses during the film, right? And I know now, even going beyond the film. Actually, I think it happens in the film too, right? You become not just partners, marital partners, but parents. Quite a 4-year human journey, right?
No, and it's also like, I think it's also was kind of like a good, in the sense of like, in terms of Ernesto and I, where we kind of very different, like, yeah, we both gay, but we kind of like have a contrast where, like, I'm not type of like where I'm gonna demonstrate. I'm just doing my thing, whatever. Like, and where Ernesto, he would, like, he's more out there people who
flamboyant, definitely.
flamboyant, and also in terms of like they would like. I have a position where like, and maybe it's like good or bad, but my position is like in life, basically, I don't need to convince you of what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I'm doing, and you take it or leave it. Where some people, like with everything, I guess, like they want you to convince them that what they're doing is that you need to believe it right now. So
yeah.
like, we're not going to get into politics these days either, but which I think everybody's like trying to convince them and trying to fight. And I think I kind of like, over a period of time, I also learned, like, if you don't agree with me, it doesn't mean we're fighting.
Right, we just don't agree. That's fine.
We just disagree. And I think in terms of like, you have outrageous people in the gay community, you have outrageous people in the straight community, and everything in between. So I think, again, it's just the human stories. And our story happened to be around wonderful ballroom dancing, which I truly love. I think, generally for me, dancing saved my life, because I think because of dancing, because so many different aspects of dancing for me was like, kept me like, somehow it organized me, it made me, I guess, more disciplined, it made me have a goal, it made me a lot of things. And generally, I think I'm really glad, because I went to law school, and like, I could have like a 9-to-5 job and stuff like that, like, but dancing, like, throughout the year, dancing brought me to America. Dancing, it did so many things for me, and that's just my experience. But, and I guess you can find yourself with any hobby or with anything you passionate about. So I think it's also, I think it's good. I think I'm very lucky to have to do what I do right now, because I'm not bored.
Right.
Job is job, and this is my job, obviously. But at the same time, I consider myself, somehow I'm 50% excited about my job, and that's a good rate.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Listen, you get tired and you want to break and this, but overall, I always say to people who just like students and enthusiasts of, like, it's they in the greatest place, because you don't have to be a professional. You can learn, you can enjoy the benefits of learning it and doing it for a couple hours a day or a couple hours a week, and enjoy it. And I think that's almost like ideal to, because then you're really getting all the positive benefits of being involved in ballroom generally.
Yeah.
And I guess you can say it with any hobby again as well, but I think for me personally, what I do, and with the studio now, Exclusively Dance Studios, have to say.
It's a beautiful studio, Nikolai. Yeah, well, I want to take a moment actually to plug your studio. So, Nikolai and one of your previous competition partners, Tatiana Banco, who run that studio together. And it's a studio in Hawthorne, New York. It's just north of New York City, right on the commuter line, right next to the train station in Hawthorne, New York. And it's a studio that has existed in that location for some time, but Nikolai, you took it over like a couple of years ago, I think.
A year ago, a little over a year
A
ago.
little more than a year ago, and you've transformed the place. It's so much more just vibrant, and the decor is much cooler. And
Yeah, you know.
well, I wasn't thinking.
Just in case
Touche.
yeah.
Yeah. I love the place, and I'm so glad to see studio thriving because it's one of my favorite locations. It's a convenient location for so many people, and I know a lot of people feel the same way. They're very, very happy to see that place thrive. We talk a lot about social dancing on this podcast. You have a wonderful social dance there every Wednesday evening. I go there regularly. There's social dances at least every second weekend. There are milongas there that I believe are now happening twice a week. And often, like, there'll be Latin nights and other things going on. So it's a great, great, great venue. Nikolai, I hear so many people talk about how they love you as an instructor. And there are a lot of other great instructors at that venue as well, but it's a really great location. And one of the cool things you do that I'm going to plug is every year you have you call it the Fire and Ice event. And I know a lot of people come up from New York City to participate. Do you want to take a couple minutes and just tell us about that quickly?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you really for giving me this opportunity. Well, the Fire and Ice, it was the name for the last year, but generally we have our annual showcase and proficiency dance. It happens usually in August, each August. Like I think it's a first Saturday or second Saturday. Usually it's a second Saturday of the month of August, and it's an annual showcase. We had it already for 5 years now, and or 4 years, and it's been steadily growing and very successful. And it's just it's a whole day, like, so daytime we dedicate to showcases and proficiencies, and at night we have a dance party with the DJ and and hosts and stuff. And it seems to be very successful event. And also as far as the showcase event, we're providing a very affordable solution for people to perform, because
Nice.
as you know, as far as the pro-am, it is costly. And and this is one of those things where it's a very, very reasonable cost. And I think we providing a very good, the venue is nice, and we provide a very good, like, all the hospitality and all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the event and people who came to the event, they come back, which is a great sign. We are happy to keep growing it, because I think next year we're expecting to have even bigger event, because people been coming and just checking it out, and people been coming back to participate the next year. So, and I think this year we actually gonna, we actually having a Monte Carlo casino.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the night event we're actually dedicating to a terrace club, which used to be in Connecticut, in Stamford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Love, we've done like a couple of times. We did this terrace club reunion, and we are planning to have another one this year, and that's going to be part of our nightly dance, and like a dinner dance afterwards. So very excited about that. And thank you for giving me opportunity to.
No, I actually was at the event this year, and I was surprised just how many people were there. I did a performance with one of your previous partners as well, Tatiana Keegan. Tatiana has shared some exercise tips with us on the podcast previously, and I know she came up and told me how surprised she was. So all these people that she did not expect to see there, people who are not in Westchester County but have come up from the city, and I think even she was surprised. One of her previous partners and I think the father was there from Austria, and she was like completely blown away. Like, where are these people coming from? But it was really a wonderful event. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Just even the social aspect, coming out to watch.
Yeah.
participate? I know there was pro-ams, there was some amateur couples performing as well. It's just a lot of fun, and a very affordable way to kind of get out and perform if you're looking to do that.
Yeah, and one more thing to add, if I may, is that because we usually have one judge who's giving you scores and comments on what you do, so you do get a feedback, and I think it's a great way. And it's not a competition, so we do certain things we do like they run like a competition, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Great thing, especially for people who, especially for people who just started in, they just to get their feet wet, and also for some actually already experienced dancers who sometimes just would like to have an extra performance in their pocket, to just because that's important. Because one thing you practice at the studio and you having good time, but when you perform out there, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So
Of course,
Yeah.
it's a great place to get that experience as well, because competition and performance experience as important as your studio practice and experience.
definitely.
Excellent. Nikolai, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. I'd known of you and I saw you on the video, but I'm so thankful that I got to meet you and talk to you in person. And thank you for sharing so much about your story here. So we appreciate it.
Well, I really thank you guys for having me here. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much, and it was really fun. Kelly and David, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikolai.
All right.